You know, that lecture was supposed to be about ordinary fish. Well, at least until the speaker started explaining why Earth's oceans are the place that evolution itself fears. Professor Xelani adjusted her glasses for extra eyes and looked around the auditorium with cautious optimism. Another day, at the prestigious Galactic Academy of Interracial Education, what could possibly go wrong? As it turned out later, literally everything, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The auditorium itself, of course, was a true marvel of engineering. Special zones, separated by flickering force fields, allowed each species to breathe what they were used to, from methane to chlorine. The temperature settings worked so that those who breathed ice would not accidentally melt those who fed on stone. It was a typical Tuesday morning, nothing special and certainly nothing scary. Xelani, she was a Vexorian, a race from the peaceful garden planet of Vex Prime, stood behind her podium and clutched her lecture notes with visible pride. Her chitinous armor glistened pleasantly under the soft light of the ceiling panels. Today's topic was aquatic predators from different worlds. It seemed like a nice, safe discussion about food chains. What could be controversial about fish? Oh, how naive she was. The students settled into their adaptive chairs. There was Glup, a jelly-like guy from Aquaria. His ancestors had never seen anything more dangerous than an aggressive bunch of seaweed. His translucent body trembled with excitement. He always behaved this way before speeches. Next to him sat Riza, a crystal from the planet Chardan. She communicated through light refraction and couldn't stand what she called biological nonsense. Her facets glowed with scientific superiority. In the back row sat Torg, a huge Korgatian with 6 eyes and fur like steel wire. Despite his size, he loved poetry and had fainted twice during the previous lecture on parasitic fungi. Giants. They're always so kind, aren't they? And then there was me, Julian Evans. I sat in the middle row and looked as harmless as possible in my standard academy uniform. 2-legged, soft skin, no armor, poison glands, or radiation breath. Humans were admitted to the academy just 3 cycles ago. When first contact was finally established, we seemed like perfectly decent guys to everyone, maybe weak, definitely fragile. Our planet was classified as a 7th-class death world, but honestly, these committees now slap that label on any planet with just bad weather conditions. Xelani cleared her throat. The sound was like gravel being poured into a coffee grinder. Good morning, students. Today we will talk about the main aquatic predators of your home worlds. Who wants to start? Several paws and tentacles went up. No one had any idea how this would end. Glup, swaying his gelatinous body, moved toward the platform. He walked with the confidence of a creature whose ancestors had been at the top of the food chain for millennia. And, let's be honest, that was the case. When your competitors are algae, it's not that hard to dominate. I will tell you about the fearsome bubble from the north of Aquaria, announced Glup. His voice bubbled through the translator. Something appeared on the hologram that I would describe as a flat pancake with eyes. Behold, continued Glup, trembling with pride, this is the ruler of our oceans. It grows to an impressive 15 centimeters in diameter and possesses an incredibly cunning hunting strategy. Xelani nodded approvingly, jotting something down on her tablet. The bubble, continued Glup, trying to add a sinister tone to his voice, just drifts with the current and waits, always waits. When unsuspecting microplankton swims by, that's when the horror begins. It absorbs it through osmosis. He paused dramatically. Riza's light language betrayed what sounded like pure sarcasm. Just a monster from a nightmare. Glup deflated a little, literally. It has no natural enemies. That makes it the top of the food chain because no one wants to eat it. Torg muttered from the gallery, without malice. On my planet, even rocks look more dangerous." I was silent, but I guess my face said it all. The corners of my lips crept upward on their own. Professor Xelani, who had studied human facial expressions from a textbook, probably thought it was a normal smile. Poor thing. She had no idea how wrong she was. Next was Riza. Her crystalline body transformed the light into bright rainbow patterns on the walls. "A shimmering eel from the crystal depths," she announced, showing a hologram of some kind of transparent ribbon with fins. "It reaches a meter in length and feeds exclusively on crystal deposits at the bottom, and its main defense is that it becomes slightly less visible when frightened." "An amazing adaptation," said Xelani, raising her antennae. "How does it hunt?" "It doesn't hunt," Riza replied melodiously. "It filters water, but it does so extremely aggressively." "Aggressively?" Xelani asked, clicking her jaws thoughtfully. "Yes, sometimes it filters water for 6 hours straight without a break." And then I couldn't hold it in. A short, sharp laugh escaped from my chest. I covered my mouth with my hand, but my shoulders still shook. Professor Xelani glanced at her reference book again. She was probably thinking, "Is that a seizure? Oh no, it's suppressed laughter." "Julian, are you all right?" she asked with concern. I just waved my hand. "I'm fine, Professor. Sorry, I just remembered something." Xelani's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but she turned her attention back to Riza's presentation. The picture was becoming quite clear. The inhabitants of the galactic oceans were, to put it mildly, polite, even too meek. Evolution on most planets was like a leisurely stroll in the park, rather than a frantic arms race. "Excellent presentations," Xelani announced. "Who's next?" "Oh, yes. Julian, would you like to tell us about Earth's aquatic predators?" I slowly stood up. Later, some of the students mentioned that, at that moment, the temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. I walked to the platform with the same casual gait of someone who had no idea that he was about to traumatize an entire class. I clicked on the hologram sensors, and an image of Earth appeared above the table, this strange little blue ball spinning in space. "So," I began, and there was something in my voice that made Xelani's antenna twitch nervously. "Earth's oceans!" The image zoomed in, showing endless expanses of dark water, deeper than any ocean on Vexoria, wider than the crystal seas of Chardon. 70% of our planet's surface is just water. Water and, well, we'll get to that. I put my hands behind my back, like a sergeant in front of recruits. Our oceans cover approximately 360 million square kilometers. They reach depths of 11,000 meters, and they are filled, absolutely stuffed, with creatures that dream of devouring you. Glup froze in his glass tank, rooted to the spot. I could talk for hours about the box jellyfish, whose venom kills in minutes, or the saltwater crocodile, essentially a dinosaur that simply forgot to go extinct, or the stonefish. It looks like a regular rock until you step on it. Then its poisonous spines inject neurotoxins that cause tissue necrosis. "Excuse me," Riza interrupted me, her light signals flashing with complete incomprehension. "Did you say tissue necrosis?" "Oh, yes," I replied cheerfully. "Your flesh just dies. It rots right on you. But we're not going to talk about them today." Professor Xelani's jaw dropped. "We won't?" "No." I smiled even wider, and several students involuntarily moved back. "Today, we're going to talk about sharks." The word hung in the air like a curse. Sharks. It sounded sharp, aggressive, as if the name itself was trying to bite through the translator's matrix. "What is a shark?" Torg slowly asked from the back row. My eyes lit up with the enthusiasm of a person who was about to ruin everyone's mood for the whole week. "Oh, I'm glad you asked, Torg. A shark is what you get when evolution decides to create the perfect killing machine and then spends 400 million years perfecting it. 400 million years. The students began to look at each other. Most species in this academy have only been intelligent for a tiny fraction of that time. Sharks, I continued, bringing up a new hologram, are cartilaginous fish that have remained virtually unchanged for longer than most of your civilizations have existed. Why? Because they got it right the first time. The hologram slowly rotated. The creature on it was about 4 meters long, torpedo-shaped with a pointed snout and a mouth. Oh my God, that mouth! It seemed to cut the entire front of its head in half. "This is the great white shark," I announced. "One of the most famous species. Look at the teeth." The image zoomed in on the mouth. Row after row, triangular serrated teeth, each one the size of a human finger. They stood in several rows like some kind of biological chainsaw. Gulp made a sound like water draining down a sewer. "These teeth," I explained in the voice of a National Geographic narrator, "are not permanently fixed. They are constantly being replaced. A single shark can change up to 30,000 teeth in its lifetime. When one falls out, the next one simply slides out from the row behind, like on a conveyor belt. A conveyor belt of death, in short." "Surely," Xelani's voice rose an octave higher than usual, "surely you're exaggerating. The classification of your planet is probably wrong." I turned to the professor, and the look on my face hardly reassured her. "Professor," I said very slowly, "I haven't even gotten to the most interesting part yet." The climate control system in the auditorium hummed louder as it tried to cope with the sudden release of stress pheromones from several species at once. The lecture promised to be a long one. I pointed to the hologram, and the shark began to rotate, showing itself from all sides. Each new angle seemed more frightening than the last. "Now, let's talk about the senses," I said in a tone as if I were discussing the weather forecast rather than the fuel for nightmares. Sharks can smell blood in the water from up to 5 kilometers away, 1 drop in a million. It's like detecting a single drop of blood in an Olympic swimming pool. "Impossible!" Riza exclaimed, her crystals flashing skeptically. "No biological system has that kind of sensitivity." "Oh, it gets better," I replied. Those 4 words would haunt Riza's dreams for weeks to come. "They have electroreception, special organs called Lorenzini ampullae that detect electric fields. They can sense their prey's heartbeat, even if it's buried deep in the sand. Your heart is beating, it's hidden, it's protected, and they know exactly where it is," I said, and Torg's 6 eyes began to blink in turn in genuine horror. I was really getting into it now. "And their eyes," I continued, "they have something called a flashing membrane. It's basically a third eyelid that covers their eyes during an attack. Well, you know, when you bite someone, you want to protect your eyesight, right? Very practical." "During an attack?" Professor Xelani asked in a weak voice. "Did you say attack?" "Well, yes, they're predators, Professor. That's the whole point." I waved my hand over the hologram, starting the hunting video. Great whites can reach speeds of up to 56 kilometers per hour. When they hunt seals, they attack from below. They pick up such speed and strike with such force that they simply fly out of the water. 3 meters of muscle and teeth flying through the air. Watching this, Glup began to secrete some kind of fluid. He only did this when he was in a state of extreme despair. "By the way, the great white isn't the biggest shark," I added casually, as if it shouldn't completely destroy everyone's world view. "There's also the whale shark, which grows up to 18 meters. This figure hit the class like a physical object. 18 meters! Some students weren't that tall, even if they stood on each other's heads. However," I raised my finger, "the whale shark is actually a filter feeder, completely harmless. A gentle giant, so to speak. But we used to have the megalodon, which became extinct several million years ago. Those guys grew to 20 meters and could bite with a force of 18 tons. Tons, Torg whispered. For him, it was a unit of measurement for industrial equipment, not a living creature. Yeah, their teeth were the size of a human palm. They could eat whales, whole whales, just crunch, and done. Professor Xelani's antennae pressed completely against her head. For Vexorians, this is the highest stage of stress. Julian, maybe we should change the subject. I think the class has had enough information about— Oh, but I haven't told you about the different hunting strategies yet, I interrupted her, and the professor's jaws clicked, making a sound like a sob. You see, each species has its own approach. Take the hammerhead shark, for example. It has eyes on the sides of its flat head, giving it a 360-degree view. It's almost impossible to sneak up on it. A new hologram appeared, a fish with a head that looked like, well, a hammer. Several students recoiled. That can't be a real creature, Riza exclaimed, her light signals flashing feverishly. Someone made that up for nightmares. Believe me, it's as real as it gets, I assured her. And then there's the blunt-nosed shark. It's probably the most dangerous to humans because it can live in fresh water. Rivers, lakes, they just swim in there. They've been found thousands of kilometers from the ocean deep in the continent. Why? Glup blurted out, barely stringing his words together. Why would they swim so far from the sea? Why? To hunt, of course, I replied, as if it were the most logical explanation in the world. These sharks are extremely aggressive. They have the highest testosterone levels of any animal on Earth. Basically, they're just angry killing machines that can swim. I switched slides. And here's a tiger shark. It eats everything: license plates, tires, armor, other sharks. It's like the ocean's garbage disposal. Only this garbage disposal is 4 meters long and has teeth. The hologram showed the tiger shark's distinctive stripes. Its mouth was gaping in what could only be described as an abysmal smile. Oh, and this is a goblin shark, I added, and after that frame, 3 students simultaneously sounded the alarm. Its jaw can shoot forward from its mouth to grab prey. The entire jaw just flies out like a biological catapult. The picture showed just that. A retractable jaw that violated all laws of aesthetics and possibly physics. Professor Xelani stood up abruptly. I think we need a short break. The class needs to digest this educational information. But, Professor, I said with genuine surprise, I haven't even gotten to the scariest part yet. Every student in the auditorium turned and stared at me with an expression of pure existential horror. That wasn't the scariest part yet? Asked Torg, his loud voice giving him away. My smile at that moment was probably the scariest thing in a room filled with images of predators. Not even close, I snapped. Somewhere around this time, the Academy administration was urgently changing Earth's classification from Class 7 Death Planet to Class 9. Do not visit under any circumstances. Xelani didn't officially announce a break. The words seemed to be stuck in her throat, and I continued talking. The hologram showed them more and more of what they considered to be water demons. So, here's the thing about sharks, I continued, leaning on the podium like a guy discussing his favorite hobby. People are constantly swimming around them. The audience fell silent. Not the pleasant silence of everyone listening, but the kind that happens a second before a mass hysterical scream. You, what? Riza's light signals went out completely. Her crystalline body became completely transparent. Her appearance hadn't shown such a reaction of fear in 3 generations. Well, yes, we swim in the ocean, mostly for fun, surfing, diving, just hanging out on the beach. There are sharks there, too. It's their home. Sometimes we bump into each other. Collide? Repeated Glup. His jelly-like body was now spread across the floor like melted wax. Collide with killer fish? Well, listen, shark attacks do happen, I admitted, bringing up the statistics on the screen. About 80 cases a year worldwide, but only 5 or 10 are fatal. I said only, as if 5 to 10 deaths from being eaten alive is an acceptable margin of error. For example, there was this surfer, Melody Garrison. A tiger shark bit off her entire arm when she was only 13. I continued, completely oblivious to the fact that half the class was barely breathing, or whatever they do with their gills. Do you know what she did? A month later, she was back in the water. She's still a professional surfer. Back in the water? Torg croaked. The same water where the creature that took her limb lives? Oh, yes. We humans do that all the time. There's even an entertainment called cage diving. People pay a lot of money to be lowered in a metal cage into water teeming with sharks, just to see the great white up close. Professor Xelani's eyes were completely glazed over. She was already beyond words or rational thought. For entertainment, I clarified, as if that explained anything. It's considered a tourist attraction. Your species? Riza squeezed out, her voice barely coming through the translator. You're just clinical psychopaths. Wait, it gets even cooler, I promised. Spoiler alert. No, it didn't get any cooler. For them, it only got worse. Sharks aren't even the top predators in our oceans. The phrase hung in the air like a death sentence. I'm sorry. Professor Xelani finally found her voice, although it sounded several octaves higher than normal. Not the top predators? You just spent 20 minutes describing the perfect killing machine to us. That's right. But they are hunted by mowers, I explained. We call them killer whales. They are bigger, smarter, and hunt in packs like real special forces. They flip sharks upside down so that they fall into a stupor, a kind of paralysis, and then they eat their livers, only their livers. They just throw the rest away. Glup made a sound for which there was no word in his language. It was a kind of gurgling howl of existential despair. And then there are the crocodiles. I was really getting into it now. 7 meters long, bite force, over 1.5 tons per square inch. They do this thing called a death roll. They grab you and spin you around until pieces of their victims start flying off. Stop, begged Torg. Please, stop talking. Oh, and the box jellyfish I mentioned, they're almost transparent. You can't see them. The poison is so strong that you can die in minutes. There have been cases where people's hearts stopped before they could swim to shore. To shore? Riza echoed. To a safe place? They can't even get to a safe place? And that's just on the surface, I added. We've barely explored the ocean. Who knows what's down there? Every time we send a sub down, we find something new and terrifying. Giant squids, fishing rods with needle-like teeth, creatures that look like they were created by a committee of nightmares. Complete chaos broke out in the auditorium. Gulp finally turned into a puddle of despair. Torg swayed back and forth, his fur standing on end. Riza flashed patterns that translated into a continuous scream. 2 students fainted. One sealed off his zone entirely, deciding it was better to suffocate than to listen to this any longer. Xelani slammed her 3 hands on the podium with all her might. Julian Evans, I am officially ending this presentation. Sit down. Now. But, Professor, I haven't even talked about how we, humans, interact with them. Sit down. I shrugged, a little disappointed, and returned to my seat. I sat there completely calm while the whole class tried to digest the traumatic realization. Humanity's home planet is not just a dangerous place. It's a horror movie flooded with water. Professor Xelani tried to restore order, waving her 4 arms in a reassuring manner, but no one was reassured. There was nothing reassuring about this situation. She was about to dismiss the class and probably go to a monastery on some peaceful planet, but then I raised my hand again. "Yes, what else?" Xelani barked. "I just wanted to mention that last summer I was at the beach," I said in a normal conversational tone. "I spent 2 weeks in California. I surfed almost every day." The class, which had just begun to come to its senses, fell into panic again. "What were you doing?" Gulp somehow managed to pull himself together enough to speak. "You went into deadly water voluntarily?" "Well, yes, the ocean is fun. Surfing is a great sport. My family goes there every year." "Your family?" Torg asked slowly. "Your family unit? With your children?" "Of course. My younger sister learned to swim when she was 4. Most human children learn at around that age." Riza's crystalline body vibrated so that the sound resembled the breaking of glass. "Do you teach your children to enter the environment of these creatures? Do you teach them that it is a basic life skill?" "Well, being able to swim is pretty important," I explained. "A lot of people live near the coast, plus there are pools, lakes, rivers, water parks. We spend a lot of time in the water." "Water parks?" Xelani asked dryly. "Entertainment facilities with water?" "Yeah, they're cool. Slides, wave pools, lazy rivers. Although after today, the name lazy river sounds a bit weak compared to a real river where stupid sharks can swim." I laughed. I really laughed. I found it funny that someone would be afraid of sharks in fresh water. "And we also have a whole Shark Week," I continued, apparently completely oblivious to the mood in the room. "It's a TV event. 7 days of programming purely about sharks. Everyone watches it. It's insanely popular." "You're creating a cult of predators," Riza whispered. "You're celebrating them." Here's the final part of the story. I kept the style of a simple guy who genuinely doesn't understand why everyone around him is so upset. The text is perfect for voiceover. It's lively and has just the right amount of irony. Part 5. We're just used to it. "Actually, they're amazing creatures," I said. "Predators that have survived a bunch of mass extinctions. That deserves respect, doesn't it?" And then I added a fact that finally blew their minds. What's more, it's sharks that are now in danger because of humans, not the other way around. We kill about 100 million sharks a year. The whole class froze. Humans, these soft, vulnerable creatures without armor or built-in weapons, are exterminating 100 million perfect killers every year. How? Torg's voice sounded completely empty. How can you kill something that has survived for 400 million years? Mostly fishing, I shrugged. Shark fin soup is considered a delicacy in some cultures, although that's being fought against now. Some get caught in nets by accident, and some we hunt for sport. The word sport exploded in the silence like a bomb. "Sport?" Xelani repeated. "You hunt them for fun?" "Well, yes, deep-sea fishing. People go out to sea in boats, take huge fishing rods. Catching a shark is like a cool achievement. You take a picture with it, and then you usually release it back into the water." "You release it?" Gulp blurted out. "You catch the planet's top predator, prove your dominance, and just let it swim away? For fun?" "Well, catch and release is ethical," I explained. "We try to take care of nature, and sharks are important to the ecosystem." "The poor guys experienced cognitive dissonance. This species, these seemingly fragile people, live on a planet covered with deadly water. They voluntarily go there to have fun. They teach their children to swim in this horror. They adore the monsters that live there, and at the same time have the audacity to worry that these monsters might become extinct because of humans themselves." "Let's see if I understand this correctly," Riza said. Her light signals were slow and clear. That's what people say when they're trying not to fall apart from shock. "Is your species so dangerous That the top predators of your oceans need protection from you? I thought for a second. Ha! When you look at it that way, it is a little strange, isn't it? Strange. The human called it strange. Not terrifying, not apocalyptic. Just strange. Class is over, Professor Xelani whispered barely audibly. Everyone out. Now, anyone who needs psychological help, the office is on the 3rd floor. Half the class had already left. It was a real stampede. Students were rushing through the doors and force barriers as if sharks could materialize right out of the hologram. Xelani remained behind the podium, clinging to it with all 4 hands to keep from falling. Her eyes were downcast with exhaustion. I timidly approached her, slinging my backpack over my shoulder. Professor, did I do something wrong? You asked us to talk about predators from home. Sharks are 100% predators. I thought, Julian, she interrupted me with a weariness that no translator could convey. Do you even understand what you just did to these students? I blinked, not really understanding her complaint. I just gave a presentation on marine biology. You described hell, she corrected me. For 45 minutes, you explained why the oceans of your planet are a liquid death trap, full of creatures that have spent 400 million years perfecting the art of killing, and then you casually mentioned that your species swims there for fun. But sharks rarely attack humans, I tried to justify myself. The chance of being struck by lightning is much higher. More people die from soda machines falling on them than from sharks. Xelani's antenna shot up. Your vending machines kill people? Well, if you shake them the wrong way, they can tip over, but that's not what I'm talking about. Everything on your planet is dangerous, Xelani said, slumping helplessly into her chair. Animals, weather, even furniture. How did your species survive? I hesitated. We just manage somehow. Earth is home. We don't think of it as dangerous. It's just normal. Normal? That word kept coming up among humans in situations where any other race would have long since declared a planetary evacuation. At that moment, 2 medics were leading Glupa to the aid station in the hallway. His jelly-like body kept trying to curl up in a corner. He was convinced that sharks could walk through walls. Torg sat on the floor, curled up in a ball, muttering something about teeth and a deadly spin. Risa locked herself in the study room and frantically Googled the classification of Earth's dangers, hoping to find evidence that I had made it all up. But it wasn't fiction. Within an hour, the Academy's entire communication system had exploded. Parents demanded explanations. Students asked to be transferred to groups where there were no humans. 3 different species filed complaints about traumatic content. The dean personally called Xelani to ask what the hell had happened in her office. By evening, the story had spread throughout the academy. These seemingly weak and gentle creatures turned out to be natives of a planet so absurdly dangerous that their leisure activity was voluntarily diving into the water with ancient killing machines. The other human students immediately noticed the change in attitude toward them. Now they were given a wide berth, greeted nervously, and whispered about behind their backs. In the cafeteria, a Crocodian who was twice my size jumped up and gave me his seat as soon as I approached. Still a little shaken by the events of the day, I sat down with my tray and saw Glup at the next table. His semi-transparent body was still vibrating slightly. "Hey, Glu, are you okay?" I called out to him. "You kind of ran out of class," I said, sitting closer. Glu's translator crackled. "On your planet, there are sharks." "Yes, but as I said, they're not that dangerous to humans," I tried to reassure him. "On your planet, there are sharks," Glup repeated, as if that explained everything in the universe. And to be honest, for him, it did. I sighed and started poking at something they called macaroni here. "You know, When I applied to the Galactic Academy, everyone at home said, "Julian, where are you going? Humans are too weak for space, not tough enough, too fragile." Professor Xelani, who had just entered the dining hall for a dose of some strong stimulant, she really needed it, heard this. Her jaws clicked, either from laughter or hysteria. The line between the two states had finally blurred for her today. "Weak," she muttered, waiting for her drink. "They thought you were weak." She looked at me, then at the other students who were giving my table a wide berth. Then she glanced back at her tablet, where the updated description of Earth glowed. Class 9 Death Planet. Do not visit under any circumstances. Inhabitants are unnaturally calm in the face of mortal danger. Approach with caution. "Weak?" Xelani repeated, and this time it was definitely laughter. This kind of laughter comes from people, or rather Vexorians, whose view of the world has just been shattered. "Your species swims with sharks for fun, and they considered you weak." I just shrugged and finally put a piece of the local pasta in my mouth. "Well, to be fair, we don't have exoskeletons or venom or anything like that." "Oh no," Xelani agreed. "You're right about that." Her eyes focused on me with something that was both respect and quiet horror. "You have something much scarier." "And what is that?" I asked. The professor picked up her drink, turned to leave, but paused for a second for a final verdict. "Arrogance," she snapped. "Absolute, incomprehensible arrogance." And with that, she left, leaving me alone in the cafeteria full of aliens who had just learned the most important lesson in the universe. Never, ever underestimate a species just because they look harmless, especially if they come from a planet where even the oceans have teeth